not enjoying my life because I'm worried I'm going to lose all of it. That's like the root cause of a lot of my personal mental issues. When I had my first internship, I would hold on to that money so tightly because I was so scared of losing it. And so it's this cycle of crabs competing to get out of the bucket, but you see that no crab usually ends up making it out. Hello, welcome back to Soju with Sarah, and I feel like we're zooming through this season, so we're on episode 6 officially now. Today, I wanted to talk about scarcity mindset. I just got back from a trip home just to see my family, and this is on my mind a lot because I realized that scarcity mindset affects me so much to this day. And I feel like everyone in one way or another kind of struggles with scarcity mindset. But before we get into that, I wanted to show you guys this new mug that came out of the kiln. And you might see that it's a little bit messed up because unfortunately I overglazed it. And so the bottom stuck to the base of the kiln. And so had to grind that down. And so the base does not look that good. I was like looking forward to this cup so much too, because this was like probably the best cup I've made so far. Today is the first episode we haven't made our own drink. This is actually a soju cocktail from this brand called Neat, and the flavor we're trying out is the pineapple ginger. And the story behind this is I got a DM on my Instagram because the founders of Neat saw my podcast, and obviously it's a soju drink, and so they sent me a package, but it doesn't end there because the package got mishandled by UPS, I think, and then it came like shattered, and so I actually got the second box hand delivered. So I'm very, very grateful and so excited to try this because I love soju cocktails, as you guys know. So yeah, let's take our first sip and evaluate the Neat drink. Also, there's other flavors too. Today we're just trying the pineapple ginger. There's like strawberry basil and other ones, so you guys should go check them out as well. Their handle is @drinkneat on Instagram. But let's try it out. That is really good. It's a lot less sweet than I actually was expecting, which I do kind of like because I think overly sweet drinks give me a headache, but also it's just like not good for your health. And it kind of does feel a little strong. Oh, the alcoholic content or the alcoholic volume is 13%. I think that's a little bit higher than what I usually drink because I usually do like a splash of soju, if you guys have seen, but we'll see how drunk I get through the video. I think I already feel it coursing through my body. I don't know if it's like placebo because nowadays when I drink, maybe because I don't drink that much, I feel like I feel the alcohol hit me almost immediately whenever I take my first sip nowadays of alcohol. But yeah, thank you to the Neat team for sending this out to me and also hand delivering. That was just so amazing of you guys. Also, one last thing before we get started with the podcast, I've been thinking of names for the soju community, and I did a little poll on my Instagram just to like get your guys' opinions, and a lot of good suggestions came in. The ones that stood out were soju sippers, soju club, which is the one that I've been calling you guys so far. I call you guys like soju community, soju club, but I want to officialize it. Soju bombs and soju shotties. Oh, and then soju holics, which my friend Sarah came up with. And the top votes went to soju sippers and soju bombs, but a lot of you guys responded and said that you like soju shotties because it was in like the same line. So I think the top 2 choices are soju shotties and soju sippers. So I put a poll in our community tab on YouTube, but also if you have strong opinions, please vote for your favorite in the comment section because I do want to figure out what to call you guys in future stuff that we do. I might also still call you guys Soju Fam. I feel like that's cute. And then we also did a vote for James's fan base because someone left a comment saying that they wanted to name the James fan base, and that one was more funny because that one, the suggestions that we have that were highest voted are Juicy J's, like the rapper, and Jam Fam, which is what James had came up with. And Jam Fam and Pan Fam could be like the 2 fan base names. But anyways, leave your favorites in the comments below so that we can formally officialize it. And yeah, anyways, lots of things to say. I feel like I always have so much to say before an episode starts, but let's get started with the episode. So I wanted to talk about scarcity mindset today because I realize I have a lot of internalized scarcity mindset from my childhood that bleeds into all of the decisions that I make in adulthood. Before we dive into this, let's talk about what is scarcity mindset, because I realized in the process of trying to think through this topic, I didn't actually have a definition. So I had to go to Google to find one. And I'm going to look off to the side because I wrote this down. But according to Google, scarcity mindset is a way of thinking that's based on the belief that resources, opportunities, and success are limited and hard to come by. I think most people have this in one form or another because society is just very capitalistic, and for most people, money is a finite resource, and there's not a ton of abundance for most people in life with regards to money. And so we all start developing this like preconceived notion that abundance is hard to come by. This is basically like the glass half full paradox, where if you give someone a glass with water in it, like filled halfway, the big difference we all know is that when you look at the glass and think it's half empty, then you're looking at things through the lens of lack of resource, lack of water in this case. And so I think that kind of explains scarcity mindset in a way, because scarcity mindset is looking at things through the lens of the glass is half empty. So when I was back home this weekend, I was talking to my parents a lot about career and finances in relation to career. I think about career so much nowadays because I think I'm at that age where career transitions start happening, and it's like your time to make a decision on what you want to do long term with your career. And whenever I approach this discussion about career with my parents, there's always questions that kind of sway me in one direction or another that happens exclusively at home. So a lot of the times the response that my parents have to me talking about career change is, how much money will you be making in a new career path, in a new job? Are there even opportunities to do X, Y, and Z? If it's like me having this other idea, especially around entrepreneurship, I think because there's no like guidebook on how to make money as an entrepreneur, and there's like many different ways. The question is always, is there even an opportunity to be an entrepreneur? And these questions always make me fear the loss of something great. And so for me right now, it's I have like a stable job and I have a stable career in tech. And so I have a lot of internalized fear of losing the financial stability and just the general stability that comes with a good tech job. But it brings me back to this mindset that I had as a kid where I was extremely money oriented. And that was a big part of my childhood. Like I cared about money so much, and I thought that that was the only way for me to be happy, is to have more money. And then whenever money would come, like when I had my first internship and had my first job, I would hold on to that money so tightly because I was so scared of losing it. And I wouldn't think of, investing it or putting it somewhere else because I would be worried that there wouldn't be more opportunities to have that money. And I think that's what a lot of like low income kids experience, is like this sense that you don't have, like so many decisions are based off of money because you don't have it in abundance. But I think money is the most common thing that people have scarcity mindset around. And some people might see scarcity mindset through the lens of survival mode because you don't have as many resources, that you would be constantly in a state of anxiety and stress and survival mode. But before we talk about how to change scarcity mindset, I wanted to dive into how scarcity mindset actually manifests, because I've realized that there's so many facets of my life and my mindset and my mentality that get affected by scarcity mindset. So the first way that I think scarcity mindset manifests is one, in pushing opportunities away or potential opportunities away. And so for a creative person, it might look like them pushing away a cool creative opportunity that doesn't pay well. I talk about this story sometimes, but I always wanted to be a fashion designer for like the first 14 years of my life. I would always have sketches of different drawings and different designs that I made. My parents were really supportive of the idea of me doing fashion design, especially when I was a kid and I was doing all these like drawings. My dad would always cut out these fashion magazine pictures and put it on my closet door, like tape it onto my closet door. And it was just covered in like different designs and cool things that he would find off of newspapers and magazines. And I just loved drawing. I loved creating. I loved designing. I remember that was my goal for like the longest time as a kid. And then when I entered high school, I feel like I was like suddenly hit with reality about like the actual opportunities within fashion, because I think at that point is when you actually start thinking about what major you want to do in college and where you want to go to school. And so I remember I started questioning things like, is there even money in fashion design? How much money could I even earn in fashion design? Are there even opportunities in fashion design if you don't come from a wealthy family, or if you're not like a Nepo baby? And like, really, would I even have potential in it if I'm up against literally so many talented people? So the way I was looking at it was, there's a lack of finances, there's a lack of opportunity, there's a lack of potential that I have in myself. And so I never went down that route because of all of those factors. And so when it came down to deciding what I wanted to do, I picked STEM because I knew that there were more opportunities, it would pay better, and it was also something that I was interested in, but maybe not as much compared to something like art school or design and fashion. But I picked it out of like this desire to have safety and security. And so when you're looking at opportunities or potential upcoming opportunities, and you're looking at it through the lens of having a scarcity mindset, you might end up just not making the decision that makes you the happiest because you're living in fear of not having opportunities and resources and money. And so for me, I feel like it inadvertently closed up many opportunities for me because I spent the next 4 years not studying fashion, not designing, kind of like just plugging myself out of this huge interest and passion that I had for like all of my childhood, and basically making a decision that was more practical for myself, but not as fulfilling, if that makes sense. So that's the first way that I think scarcity mindset manifests, is it prevents you from making decisions that might open opportunities later down the line. The second way that I think scarcity mindset manifests is sometimes it manifests as jealousy or just like lack of generosity, because I think inevitably when you see things as being limited, like opportunities as being limited and money being limited, it creates this environment of like competition that maybe wouldn't have been there. I know some things in life, like internships and other job opportunities, there are like limited slots for that. So it makes sense if there's some amount of competition there. But I think in other ways, when you feel like you don't have enough of something, you're less likely to help other people. I think growing up, I would always be like, well, I don't have any money to give other people. So then why would I donate money to like different causes if I don't even have it myself? Which I think makes sense. But there's other times where I feel like you can contribute and do things and be kind without having to sacrifice a resource that you don't have. But I remember this came up when I was like doing an internship once, and my internship host had gone to Caltech, and Caltech's very intensive. The academics are great there, but it's very rigorous. And I think their grading scale is also very rigorous. So it's really hard to get like a 4.0 there. But I remember he said that everyone was just so cutthroat because it was hard to get like a good grade. He said that at the libraries, he would often get textbooks from the library, open it up and realize it was all crossed out with Sharpie. And it was because students there would try to compete with each other. They would basically read a textbook, and once they're done with it, cross everything out with Sharpie so that the next person that was borrowing the textbook couldn't see what the contents of the book were, so that they couldn't prepare and study for the test, which I thought was insane. It's so crazy to be that competitive about something. But it brings me to this idea of like crabs in a bucket. And if you've heard of this analogy before, it's a really interesting way of describing like the behavior of pushing people down versus bringing them up. But crabs in a bucket is essentially, if you think about a bucket of crabs, very rarely do the crabs ever end up getting out of the bucket, because most of the time when one crab is moving towards the rim of the bucket, another crab will swoop in to like pull down the crab at the top. And so it's this cycle of crabs competing to get out of the bucket, but you see that no crab usually ends up making it out, because all that's happening is each crab is dragging down the crab at the top. Sometimes that's true in life too, where when competition and jealousy comes into play, it's really hard to like fully support people or feel like you want to fully support other people. But then in the long run, I think the abundance mindset way of thinking is that if you help push one of the crabs up, maybe at the top, they'll put their arm down or help bring you out. But just that like supporting other people or supporting other crabs can help you move up and rise up rather than dragging down crabs at the top. I don't know if I explained that correctly, but I think that's what like the competitive mindset kind of looks like. But in childhood, for me personally, I had this whole scarcity mindset around friendship too, which I think is a good example, because as a child, I would always be fearful of introducing my friends to my other friends because I would be worried that they would become better friends, or that they would hang out without me, or that I'd somehow be driven out of a friendship with someone if I introduced them to another one of my cooler friends. Which now as an adult looking at that, I'm like, that's a really silly fear to have. You know, sometimes that does happen, like you introduce two friends and they become best friends. But I think more often than not in my adulthood, I've wanted to introduce people because I realized that through introducing other people, you also get introduced to more people. And it's only beneficial to keep supporting and being generous with things like friends and other resources, because if you believe in good karma, things come back to you. So that's the second thing, which is I think scarcity mindset drives this whole jealousy and competitiveness and lack of generosity that ultimately ends up being maybe not as beneficial. And then the last thing, I think it creates a lot of negativity. And for me, at least, I've always had so much negativity around my own abilities because I'm like, I'm incapable of doing this because of XYZ reasons, whether that's my own personal skills, my own equipment that I have to start something new, or even just money. Like I don't have the money, or I don't want to use the money or lose the money that I have doing some new venture. But it also creates negativity around just being able to enjoy the moment. For me, I've seen moments in my life where I'm actually not enjoying the things that I'm doing, or I'm not enjoying my life because I'm worried I'm going to lose all of it. And I take everything so seriously because I'm like, what if I lose my job? What if I get laid off? What if I don't have something lined up? And it also, I think, makes me a very hyperactive person because I'm trying to always find a solution for something, or I'm always trying to find like a backup plan before I take any sort of risk. And I see this also in my parents a lot, where they're not willing to take any sort of risk because they're worried of losing the bits of things that they have in their life. Even if it isn't a lot, it's just constantly holding on to what you have because you're worried of losing it. And for my parents too, I think the fear of losing just the money that we have causes them to not really enjoy life as much. And so they might not spend money on experiences and traveling and doing things that I think they talk about. Like my dad always talks about going on a cruise, and we just haven't gone on a cruise. Cruises are expensive, but it's like the fear of like spending is so real. But I really do think growing up like low income does make you hold this like scarcity mindset so tightly, because just when you grow up without abundance, you're constantly aware of money, people, the opportunities that you have because you don't have money, all that. And I remember growing up, we would do random things that I'm like, I used to be embarrassed to admit certain things about my childhood because I just felt like, oh, it showed like how poor I was. But I like have no problem talking about it now. But it's like we would rip napkins into smaller pieces of napkins because we wouldn't want to use like a whole napkin at once. And we would always turn the AC off. Sometimes it just was not on at all because electricity is expensive. And funny enough, when you like turn your AC on and off, it actually is like more expensive for your electricity bill. But we didn't know that. I think to some people this might seem like very, very frugal, but when you're living paycheck to paycheck, it is just a different life. Like you're always in constant fear of like not having enough money. And so I think that just drove this whole concept in my head about how I need to like hold on very tightly to the things that I do have. Money, especially in adult life, matters so much, but money is also like the root of all like emotional turmoils, or a lot of emotional turmoils. Also, before we move on to the next section, I do want to acknowledge the privilege that I do have to even speak on this topic as someone with a corporate tech job and a stable financial situation currently. I wanted to caveat that because I know everyone's situation is different, and everything I'm saying is just coming from a personal perspective of where I am right now. But anyways, just wanted to say that and to continue. So yes, that brings us to abundance mindset, which is a topic I talk about in therapy so often. So I think that's a really great topic to dive into and to think about how to actually have abundance mindset, because I wrote some things down earlier today about ways that I at least try to wire my brain to have an abundance mindset. But I'm going to go get the intermission snack because I know last episode we didn't have a snack, but today we do. So I'm going to go grab it and we'll have intermission now. Da-da-da-da. Welcome to intermission. We have James back.
Hello.
And for intermission today, we actually have this mango jelly candy. It's like this peelable mango
It says
candy.
mango juice candy. They're very descriptive with the name.
Yeah, this is what it looks like. I don't exactly know what to expect, but I think this is similar to one of the viral like TikTok peelable candies. Also, before we try this, do you want to try some of the soju?
It's called neat. This looks so neat.
Oh, I forgot to make that joke earlier.
Oh.
It's a weeknight today, so I don't know how much you want to drink.
It's a weeknight, but I'm not a weak boy.
Oh,
it tastes like juice.
it does.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, ASMR time. Here you go. It's kind of smaller than I thought it would be. I also thought it would be a little more like gummy looking, but it kind of doesn't really look peelable. So I don't know if this is...
Yeah, what would you compare this to?
Yeah, it's definitely not peelable. It tastes really good.
It tastes really good. When you first bite into it, you know how like when you... The like sensation you get, the really strong one where you like have a warhead or like a sour thing? A really intense like jaw tightening kind of thing. I just got that from this.
Really? It's really true. Like it sticks to your teeth a little too much.
The chewing being kind of hard makes it really like my jaw tense, I think.
Oh, yeah. You do have TMJ, right?
Yeah, TMJ. Too much jolliness.
Okay, how would you rate this?
7.5 out of 10. The taste is like a 9 out of 10, but the chewiness makes it like a 7.5.
Yeah, taste for me is an 8.5. I've had better mango tasting candies, but I do like mango in general. The chewiness is like a 5, unfortunately.
So averages out to
6.5?
Okay.
7? Yeah.
Juices with James.
We're having a little Juices with James segment because I felt like this topic was a little bit less warranting of a game because they have some games that I want to start introducing. But today we're just going to do Juices with James because the topic is scarcity mindset.
Quick note, for the other segments later on where we do games, it should be James's games. But this one's just Juices with James.
That's so cute. That's really cute.
It's just a note for the future.
Only
so
if you're
everyone
on
should
it,
look
though.
forward to that.
Also, another aside, we were talking about fan base names earlier, and your top 2 are Jam Fam and Juicy J's. Do you want to sway the audience anyway before they vote?
If I had to sway the audience, I would implore you to choose Juicy J's. I think it's a little more fun. It's a little edgy. It knows what it wants, but it doesn't push too hard to get there. So, yeah, I would choose that one. Yeah. Jam Fam is cool, but you know, we're not a family yet. We're more like we're Juicy J's together.
So settle that in the comments. What do you guys want?
Yeah, Juicy J's or Jam Fam. Please tell us. Also,
I realize we always have cat fur, especially on James's microphone because I think I use mine more so I clean it off, but our producer Moose sheds so much. Yeah, whenever he's helping us get ready for the podcast, he just doesn't realize that he is just like shedding on the mics. So that's just a note for him in the future. He's behind the camera, so he needs to work on wearing some hairnets. Yeah, this is an abusive work environment just for him, by the way. But he's staying silent. Hashtag strong with Moose. Is he gonna be like a whistleblower? He's gonna be on one of those like HBO or Netflix documentaries exposing us. He's gonna meow 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 meow. I wanted to bring you on to talk about scarcity mindset. Well, you came to the right guy because economics is all about scarcity, and I was an economics major and a tutor in school. So very true. You came to the right guy. So, what do you think is like? How has scarcity mindset affected you? Like, what is your current mindset? So I used to like budget a lot, like really hard. So I used to like track you do that. Like every single expense and then try to like make sure all my costs are down, which is very important. I won't say that budgeting is not important, especially if you have like a tight income. But what I realized is like rather like I was spending so much time trying to minimize certain costs that ultimately like maybe it's the rows of expenses are like shorter because I'm focusing on it, but the actual total amount of like money that I'm saving and like building up my wealth wasn't actually that impactful versus if you just spend that time trying to like make more income somehow, I think like your efforts are way more valuable. Is there something non-money based and non-finances based that you feel like you also have scarcity mindset around? Oh yeah, this was something I was going to bring up when you told me about this podcast episode topic, which is my hot take on it because I like doing my hot takes. Give us your hot take. I think scarcity mindset is just another way to express that you don't have like self-belief in yourself. That's kind of redundant, that you don't have self-belief or self-confidence. And I know that is
a very like loaded statement, and there's a lot of like nuance to address there.
Yeah.
But this is for me and my own personal reflection.
Yeah.
I've realized that I've had scarcity mindset because I just am not self-confident about certain things or don't have the self-belief that I should. So as this relates to career, it's been something I've been thinking about a lot. So like I've been very publicly on my Instagram, just like telling people that I work a corporate job during the day, and then in the evenings, like my 5 to 9, I am working on clothing design, hope to launch a fashion brand and all those things. There's like a lot of scarcity mindset that I've been feeling about transitioning to potentially like just quitting the 9 to 5 at some point and then going into something a little less stable, which is like both doing more of the content creation and then also like launching the brand and like making a full-fledged business out of it. Something that happens when you come from a lower income background and also a more traditional like I guess corporate career is you have a scarcity mindset about like, now that I was lucky enough to get to this place, I need to like
hold on to
it for dear life. Like I can't let this go. Like why would I let it go? I've worked my whole life for it, and so has my family. Like and so the scarcity mindset that I've been having is basically a fear that if I quit my job at some point for this less like quote unquote stable thing where I don't have a guaranteed salary, it's like you eat what you kill kind of job. For some reason, when I picture myself going into this like new phase of career where I'm freelancing basically, I always picture myself like, oh my God, in like 6 months, I'm gonna be like broke. I'm gonna have no money. I'm gonna lose all my savings because I'm gonna like burn through it all living in New York. I'm not gonna make any money. And I like scare myself out of the idea that I can make it if I quit my corporate job to do something less stable. And so that's a huge scarcity mindset thing. It's like the ability to make money for me feels scarce right now. I just kept digging at why. And I realized I just don't believe in myself enough to do it. So once I like realized that, I was kind of like, okay, with how risk averse and thoughtful you've had to be about your career so far and like saving and making sure you have a lot of like emergency funds and stuff like that, would I really let it get to the point where I'm completely out of money and just not making any money? Like worst comes to worst, I find a part-time job that pays enough, and then I like try to get another corporate job, right? And so I just realized I'm just not trusting myself enough in this scenario. Like I am still me when I quit my job at some point in the future, and I just need to like remember that I am capable of doing things. So that's been a scarcity mindset I've been overcoming more recently.
I know we talk about this a lot, and I think in the last like year when we've talked about career changes and like taking the leap of faith for like making a business, I feel like we both kind of make each other more worried because we both have scarcity mindset. And so sometimes I'll ask a question like, oh, how much money do you need to invest into like a fashion business, or how much profit do you need to break even and like start making a profit? Sorry, how much revenue do you need to make a profit like that? And I think that all drives us down this certain spiral of thinking that we aren't capable of doing things.
A lot of people in interviews that I've watched who are now successful say they're so glad they didn't know anything about the whatever they're pursuing at the time when they were young, because if they did, they wouldn't have done it. And if they didn't try to go for it, they wouldn't have reached the level of success and amazing career that they have now. And so I think you do have to go into it a little bit with like a level of, I wouldn't say blind confidence, but you do have to have confidence in yourself to like make it happen, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Drawing the correlation between scarcity mindset and requiring self-confidence to kind of like get out of that scarcity mindset. How do you think you've navigated that? What's your experience been like getting to a point where you feel more confident about yourself? And in the past, how was that lack of confidence for you?
Yeah. I would say, you know, it's a lifelong process to like get better, right? And like improve on yourself. I'm way more confident in myself than I ever have been.
Yeah.
And like thinking back to even just in college, I feel like I was like so insecure and like not confident at all.
Yeah.
So I guess I can talk about what those things were. So I think one major thing in the past was like not being confident in my looks. So part of like the scarcity mindset aspect of this, I grew up in the South around a lot of white people. So I was like basically the only Asian kid in a lot of classes. And I think what that does for a lot of like minorities who grew up in those circumstances, it creates like a scarcity mindset around your ability to date or be desired by someone because you're not the beauty standard. In fact, you're like very like frequently told that you're not the beauty standard. So I remember in like middle school, this one kid told me like, oh, he like made fun of the fact that I had like a very flat face or something.
Yeah.
So, and that's like a very like, I guess, Asian feature. And so I think just instances like that made me from a very early age a lot less confident in my looks. That's definitely been a major thing. And how I feel like I've kind of overcome that in the past few years. One, I gotta like credit you a lot because just because you wanted me and I just needed that so bad. I'm just kidding.
I had a scarcity mindset around relationships, so I could only hold on to you.
So that's the reason you just dated me. You're like,
kidding,
I can't get anyone better. I think just like I think so highly of you and thought so highly of you, and I think your like vote of confidence in me a little bit was very like
Aw.
eye-opening to me. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I can be desired. I have a lot of like value as a person,
Mhm.
and someone can, you know, love me for me, and I don't have to like. I feel like I had a laundry list of things in like my journals about.
Yeah.
It used to be so toxic, honestly, to myself.
Really?
The idea I had it back then was I would write this in my journal.
Yeah.
You need to be so good and undeniably good in all these different aspects that people will like you and like romantic interests will like you too. So I had like different things about like fitness, different like career, whatever, like how smart I am that I needed to like get myself up to in order for someone else to like have interest in me or like want to I have had friends all my life, so maybe it's less on the friendship part, but more on the romantic interest side. So I was pretty like insecure back then as a young college kid, and I think you as a more secure, self-confident person helped me to like kind of break out of that and realize like, oh, like I don't have to be like this. So that was like one big thing for sure.
Oh.
But for all of you loners out there who don't have a girlfriend to help you with that, another thing that helped me. Another thing that helped me is my discovery of like my interest in fashion and style, which you also helped me get into more too. But big, I think why I love fashion so much is this ability to like style yourself and wear things that make you feel good and self-express and also things that you feel like you look great in and you feel confident stepping out the door rather than like wearing whatever like I might have worn in the past when I didn't care as much about the style aspect. And so I think fashion has been a really big discovery for me to feel a lot more confident in myself. Yeah. And also just like connecting with other people who have that same interest. I don't know what it is. Like I do feel more like confident in myself being able to socialize now too because I have like that connection point with people.
I can see it too, just like the way you talk to people and the way you talk about yourself is so much more positive now instead of self-deprecating, because I feel like when you have a negative perception of yourself, it comes off to self-deprecating in social situations. And so I'm like really proud of you too. I feel like I've seen you in the last 7 years too develop this like confidence that I can't describe.
I will say another thing that has helped me is when I observe friends who are really confident, it makes me really reflect on myself, and their behaviors can be really different from mine. Yeah. And you know, I've gotten feedback that I come off as anxious or kind of like nervous sometimes when I meet people, and it is because I'm nervous. Yeah. So something I've been trying to do more is like adopt mannerisms of people that I think of as more confident and more poised and like easy to make friends easily. Yeah. And I'm just trying to emulate them in the way I talk and like come off to them. So I think that's one thing. It's just like if you have friends who are more confident, just try to channel that energy for yourself and like just try to get into that mindset, I guess. And I think those three things that I just mentioned, it just leads to you building up more of a you're just way more confident in yourself and believe in yourself more to be a strong person. Yeah. And I think that does like a lot for the larger life things, whether it's you wanting to jump into a new career and allowing yourself to overcome the scarcity mindset, because now you're this person who's way more confident that you can do that thing and take that risk, make it happen for yourself, versus before it's like, if I couldn't do this for myself with like trying to date or trying to find friends, how are you going to feel confident doing something even bigger than that? And so I think just for me in my personal journey, like having been able to become a lot more self-confident in those aspects, I'm now in a point where I'm like, okay, I feel like a normal person now, and I think I can do the different things I want to do that are bigger. Yeah.
I love how this became like a whole section on confidence, which would also be a great standalone episode too. But
for all my juicy J's out there, maybe a future episode.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on scarcity mindset and confidence. The Soju fam
Is that the
adores.
name for your fandom now?
It's
Your
it's still
audience?
tentative.
Tentative?
I love calling everyone Soju fam or Soju club though. The Soju fam. What's your vote? What's your personal favorite? There's
What are the
also
options? Soju fam, soju club,
Soju fam,
soju sippers was one, right?
Soju sippers, and Soju holics, and Soju shotties. Shotties is really clever.
I like soju shotties, and I think soju club is nice, but maybe a little generic. And then, no offense. And then what was the other one? Soju sippers.
Soju sippers. Soju sippers was leading the vote, actually.
I'm sorry to you guys, but my vote's not on
like
that one
soju
personally.
It's
What's another
growing
one?
on me.
Oh, it's
Every
growing on
time
you?
I hear it in my ear, I'm like, oh, that sounds kind of nice.
Yeah.
Soju,
you're
hey
sipping on it.
sippers.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say soju holics. I don't think we want to promote alcoholism on this show, so
As we literally drink alcohol every episode.
we have soju sippers. That's just like very like light.
Uh-huh.
We just
With
we
soju
dabble.
sippers.
We dabble.
Uh-huh.
And then soju holics is like we're like going ham. We're like wow.
It's like Moose with his churros.
Yeah, churros.
Churros.
Yeah. Churros.
Churros.
He's eating churros.
We actually feed
now.
him churros.
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you for coming on today. Hope to see you in future episodes.
I hope so too, and thank you for having me on, and thank you for the one person who's still watching in my segment. I appreciate you very much.
So in college, I had this long-lived stint in believing in manifestation and the law of attraction. I still do, not to a lower degree maybe, and this is like the spiritual side of me coming out, but I'd learned about law of attraction and I tried really hard to incorporate it into my life, and I did actually notice a lot of good things happening. But law of attraction and manifestation is like very, very closely tied to abundance mindset, because the basic gist of it is like you should put out positive energies, have strong conviction and belief, and think with abundance mindset in order to attract good opportunities, good things, and good karma in your life. In like a more colloquial sense, it's kind of just like being a little delulu, if that makes sense. But according to Google, law of attraction is a universal principle that people will attract into their lives what they focus on. And so it's rewiring your brain to think about the things you actually want in life instead of focusing on the things that you don't have. And so I remember when I was in this whole phase of like wanting to manifest things, I would think about like pipe dreams of what I wanted to happen. And for me, it's not anything super like magical. Like I'm not going to suddenly have like a Lamborghini if I think about having a Lamborghini. But the whole concept is when you put your mind to something, you actually end up taking the steps that lead you there. And so with law of attraction and manifestation, a lot of it was based on you thinking about physical, emotional, tangible and non-tangible things that you want. So for some people, it might be like a monetary goal or a financial goal. For other people, it might be an actual item or thing or a trip. I remember at that time, I was also like pretty boy crazy at the beginning of college. And so I was like, a lot of my manifestations were also around like guys that I liked and like wanting them to like see me. And it's like part of why I thought manifestation worked was also because I feel like whenever I liked a guy, they would end up liking me back because I was like writing about it and like manifesting it. But that's like young Sarah. Maybe that's how I got James. I don't know. But from like a very like spiritual side, there's this whole atomic energy concept, and I don't know if I'm describing it correctly. If you're putting out positive frequencies and wavelengths into the air, it'll attract positive frequencies and wavelengths back. Some of like the exercises that you do with law of attraction and manifestation is actually writing down or creating like mood boards of things that you want to happen in your life. And so I remember I had this journal that I had gotten from a career fair, and I just started writing in it. And I remember I would write things I'm grateful for. I get asked this a lot on my main channel whenever I show my journal. I get asked how my journal is structured and to kind of like go over it. So I'll go over it right now, just so if you're journaling and you kind of want to get inspired by like my format. I used to start at the very back of journal. So I split it into like 3 sections. I would have a back, a middle, and a beginning. And so the back section, I would always start with things I'm worried about in my life. So I'm not really focused on like, it could be scarcity mindset if I'm like worried about, not having an income or things like that. But I would start with the things that I was worried about or anxious about in my life and put it in the very back. So sometimes it would be things like, oh, I'm worried about my grandmother's surgery, or I'm worried I'm not going to get an internship, or I'm worried that, I won't have time to do this next semester. And then in the beginning of the journal, I would always write things I'm grateful for. So I'd be like, I'm very grateful for my friend, like Kyle, for example. And then I would just like write down all the things that were going well in my life and I was very thankful for. And in the middle of the journal, it was literally split like 50-50 each side. I would write down my goals and things I was working towards. I literally titled it Law of Attraction, and I would just write down different things that I wanted. Sometimes it would be like, I want to get the summer internship. I want to find new friends in the new city that I'm in. I want to make this amount of money. I want to buy my parents a house. And those would be my goals. I remember I would do this so frequently, like every couple of days, I would like write some things down. They'd always be changing. But the biggest thing that I noticed from that is so many times a lot of the worries that I had in the back of my journal would be so inconsequential. Like they would be such small problems that like a couple of months later when I look back on it, I'm like, oh, like that issue just like resolved on its own. Like that was never even that big of a problem. Or like, oh, I didn't even remember that I had that concern. Sometimes it would be around like test stress and like preparing for exams or like a bad grade that I got. And I just came to realize that so many of the things in the back of the journal didn't mean much to me. But then in the front of the journal, I saw so much like continuity and the things that I was grateful for. It was so consistently like family and friends, where I am in life, like even just like the ability to have a community to be around, that would repeat in my journals so often. And then my goals were also pretty consistent. Like my goals always kind of evolved. So if it was like, I want to get a summer internship, the next step of that evolution would be like, I want to get a job at like this tech company that I wanted to work at. But I really want to get into journaling a lot because I do recall how journaling really helped me through a lot of my problems at that time. And I think it just also tying it back to like the scarcity mindset thing, I think it helped take me out of scarcity mindset and like always thinking about the negatives and the bads and the things that I didn't have. I'm a proponent of law of attraction and manifestation when it helps you to kind of reach the positive mindset. I'm not going to be here preaching like, oh, you're going to get a Lamborghini if you set your goal to getting a Lamborghini. But I definitely think focusing on the things you want in life and having faith and belief that you will get it will help you get there. Which goes into the next topic that I wanted to talk about, which is ways of overcoming scarcity mindset, because a lot of us carry it with us and sometimes it's hard to like notice the signs and like notice how exactly it affects us and how to like get out of the funk of thinking and seeing things as always being scarce. And of course the caveat is everyone's situation is different. So some opportunities and certain things do require resources that some of us don't have. Like I will never be an astronaut. I don't have like 20/20 vision. And also I just don't think I could be an astronaut because I'm not built to be an astronaut. I think there's other things in life that we shouldn't hold ourselves back from. And so the first way of navigating like scarcity mindset for me is what I just mentioned, which is writing down things that you're grateful for and also just journaling in general. I think writing always helps to get your thoughts out and also like organize your thoughts. So a little gratitude exercise, instead of doing like the whole journal back, forth, middle thing that I do with my journaling, you could literally just sit down sometimes and just write out a list of things that you're grateful for. And that kind of helps you tap into the abundance mindset and thinking about what exactly is abundant in your life rather than focusing on the opposite. And a quote from Oprah that I saw the other day is, if you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. And if you look at what you don't have in life, you'll always never have enough. I just think that that is a great way to summarize what like abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset stands for, because for me at least, I think it's sometimes hard to take a step back and be objective about the things that I do have in life. And so to really root yourself in abundance mindset, you have to know what you do have. The second way that I think for me has at least helped me come out of this scarcity mindset, not fully because I feel like I'm still grappling with it a lot, but is to practice generosity and supporting other people and other friends and family. I know sometimes it's hard to always be generous, but I do really think that good karma is real and that being kind to people and supporting other people and helping other people is always the way to get that back into your life. Because if you're not offering support and help to other people, how can you expect other people to help and support you? And so even from like a space of maybe someone has more than you and it's like easy to be jealous of that, it's always still good to be kind and like to be generous, because you never know when that's going to turn around and help you. I think on Reddit I've seen a few like Reddit threads where it does cycle back. And so like there's a story of this guy who didn't have much money himself and was really poor, but he would always be giving people money, like homeless people and people that were in need money. And one day one of those people became very successful and remembered the gratitude that he showed, or the generosity that he showed, and ended up paying him back in amounts that like exceeded the amount that he gave them. I think that's just a great example of good karma and like being kind and being generous. Obviously, that's not to say that you should always be expecting people to give back to you and that relationships with people are like one-to-one, like you give, I give kind of thing. But there's times when people can come back into your life just to help you. And so remember that. This next tip I think is just true for like not just scarcity mindset, but other reasons. I think sometimes we need to stop scrolling as much. And I do this a lot where if I have some downtime, I'll just be scrolling Instagram. I think scarcity mindset gets exacerbated by social media sometimes, because on social media, obviously everyone's posting good things mostly. And so it's easy to feel like someone else has way more than you, or it's easy to compare yourself to other people and think that you lack what other people have, especially when it comes to like luxury influencers. I think it's really easy to see people posting like new Chanel bags that they bought or new this and that, and like crazy opportunities and crazy things that they're doing with their lives that you're not, to feel so lackluster and to feel like you're lacking all the things that this person has. But the one thing I live by is on social media, because I do it, I always try to remember that there's a lot that people aren't showing too. And so maybe something that they have abundance in, like really nice bags, they might lack in other ways, right? They might not have a fulfilling relationship. They might not have this or that. And most people don't share that often the things that they lack in life on social media. It's usually just all the things that they have in abundance or want people to think they have in abundance. So yeah, I think social media is like very unhealthy sometimes. And besides that, there are two more things. So one is in therapy, my therapist taught me to do this, which I'm still trying to incorporate into my life because sometimes I forget. My therapist taught me to create this voice or a character in my head that when I have negative thoughts, to just bring out that character or voice and nip the negative thought in the bud. So if I'm having doubts about myself, or if I'm thinking, oh, I can't do this, or I don't have this and I can't do that, to have a voice that says, no, you can, and you will, and you are, and you're good, and you're perfect. Not perfect, but even if it's just something like, oh, I woke up and I feel bloated and I'm like, oh, I look so bad today, I'm so bloated, to have a voice that's like, girl, stop it. Like, you look great today. Your skin looks flawless. You know, your hair looks shiny and healthy. Like, you look good. You're on your period. Like, we all get bloated. Like, just have a voice that kind of stops you from spiraling in like negative directions. And the last one is to just understand what possibilities are out there, because a lot of the times when we're so focused on what we're currently doing, I think we forget that there's a lot of possibilities for us to do cool things and amazing things with our lives. An experiment I wanted to mention is there's this one called the Invisible Gorilla experiment. I think that's what it's called. There's also a book. I have that book on my like to read list for books right now. Basically, there was this experiment done with some kids, and I think it was like students, but they had them throw balls at each other and try to count the number of times a ball was passed around to people wearing different shirt colors. In the middle of it, they sent like this man wearing a gorilla suit into the middle of the ring. He was there for like a couple of minutes and then left, and most of the kids didn't even notice that there was a gorilla that walked in for like that period of time, because they were so fixated on the ball and they were so focused on counting like the number of times the ball was passed that they didn't even realize this other thing that was happening in life. And so I think that's really true of people sometimes, when we're so focused on seeing our life a certain way or so fixated on one narrative, that we forget to see like the other dimensions. If you watch Everything Everywhere All at Once, there's all these different ways your life could turn out, like these different paths. And I think when we're so focused on one path and one journey, we forget all the possibilities of what could happen with our lives and what we could do with our lives. Basically, the possibility of what could be is kind of plagued by, this is what I can't do. But this is also from online when I was like Googling earlier. But the last part of this, because this episode is getting kind of long, is asking yourself, if you can't fail, if money and other things weren't in the equation, what would you want to do with yourself? And that makes you think about all the different things that could happen and that could be real and could be true. Obviously, everything's caveated by there's other external things that go on in life that we can't control. But moral of the story that I kind of wanted to just get across is we all have potential, and sometimes it's the fear of losing what you have currently or the unwillingness to believe that better things are coming that stops you from actually reaching that potential. So hopefully this was a thought-provoking episode. I have some other like random thoughts about this, but I think that we'll end here. If you guys resonate, let me know, and hopefully there will be more continuations of this discussion through future episodes. But as always, thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bloopers.
It's bloopers. Also, before we try this, do you want to try some of the soju? Oops, sorry. This is chaotic. Sorry. Topic of today is scarcity mindset. Mindset. Do you think Smoose has scarcity mindset? Smoose?
Yeah, I think it's scarcity mindset with churros, probably. We don't give him the churros as often, so I think he probably, like, whenever we give it to him, you should see him. He's like ravenous. He's like, it's like, chill out, dude.
Like he's never seen
there's
it before.
more. There's like plenty more where that came from. But he's just like, as if it's his last meal.
Do you think that's the only thing he has scarcity mindset around? Oh no, he has scarcity mindset around playtime and cuddle time. You should see him whine when we're not playing with him.
Well, he doesn't really like cuddle time, so I think he thinks that's abundant. Yeah,
that's true.
Abundance mindset about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then scarcity mindset around playtime.
Yeah, and then he has abundance mindset about wet food because the brand of wet food we've been trying to feed him for a while, like he just doesn't like it. So I think like
sorry, but you should address your audience, Juicy J's.
For all you lonely Juicy J's, I'm really sorry about this first tip because if you don't have a girlfriend who's like as amazing as Sarah, I don't know what to tell you. I can't really help you with that. But for me, this lovely girl is what helped me partly get over my like confidence stuff.